All right, welcome everybody to today's Society Gal workshop. We have an amazing guest today, Diamond Ward, who's going to talk about unleashing the power of email inbox organization. So really simplifying that really scary looking inbox that probably has 2 million emails in it every time you look at it. So she's going to help us simplify that today. I'm going to go ahead and pass the wand over to you, Diamond. But before I do that, just make sure that if you have questions, put it in the chat, or if there is a time for questions, you can say it on the call and come on with your audio, and Diamond can kind of walk you through. She's going to go through some actual demonstration today as well. So make sure you have a nice, clear, big screen to see it all. This will also be recorded on our YouTube channel as well. All right, go ahead, Diamond.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're excited to talk about email organization with me. So this is from Chaos to Clarity, Unleashing the Power of Email Organization. And I am arguing a very controversial point that this can be done in 4 steps. And I'm going to show you that. So hopefully you're a believer by the end of this presentation. So just to briefly introduce myself to you guys, I am Diamond Ward. I am a creative virtual assistant, project manager, and the CEO and all the other roles within the virtual gym, which is my business. I help creative service-based entrepreneurs thrive by partnering with them to bring their vision to life, and I usually am supporting them but with administrative support, marketing support, project management, of course, and client relationship management. So the through line between all these areas of support happens to be email. And you might be asking yourself when you join this call, or anybody who sees this workshop title and they're like, why is email organization so important? And that's a valid question because I don't think many people put much weight on their email inbox and what it contains, what it does. But I know that in the community we are in, small business owners, entrepreneurs, email can make or break us. Not to, catastrophize the situation, but it can. And it's so important because it directly impacts sort of like our productivity, our professionalism, our client relationships. Uh, Email is one of the primary channels of communication today. Essentially, from the smallest small business, whether you are making cakes out of your house, to potentially the biggest corporation where you have 17 departments and 30,000 employees, the conflating factor here is that we all utilize email, and we utilize it for many reasons. To quickly share information with each other, to access essential information. Collaboration is a big proponent of why email exists. It also is a reflection of your professionalism, right? There is significance in being a business and having email communication that is clear and efficient and timely. I think that's the biggest emphasis, timely, right? Because you get so much professional credibility from simply just being responsive, from being attentive, right? Um, you are facilitating communication between all these people, I imagine, right, as a small business owner. So communication is a key aspect of why email is important. You need it to communicate, and you also need it to sustain these relationships. And then going into productivity, I don't know about you, but I know for myself, if I were to jump into an email inbox to look for one specific thing and I see a bunch of unread emails, it's cluttered, it's disorganized, I don't know what's what, I'm easily derailed. And so that essentially, having an organization system essentially derails that process of losing valuable time, because time is money and energy, and we can't waste it too much on things that don't matter that much in the moment, which can be the miscellaneous emails you have in your inbox at that time. So with that in mind, I do want to give you like a little bit of background about the email system and how mine kind of came about. So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I knew that I wanted like to establish strong, efficient systems in the beginning. I wanted to ensure that I just had a very strong foundation. And so email was one of those areas of focus where I was like, I need to have a system in place. And I approached creating the system for myself with kind of two core principles or philosophies, as you can call them. So one is Inbox Zero by like Merlin Mann. It's one that I became familiar with when I was in college. And it's just about sort of like clearing mental clutter when dealing with your email. And it gives you basically very actionable steps on how to deal with your email. And also had two other prominent points that I really thought about when I was creating this, which is that some messages are more important than others, which is true, right? A message from my client would be 10 times more important than just a random Dubsado notification about a webinar or a new feature, right? They do not equate. They are not the same thing, and they do not hold the same value for me. And then the second point of that is like time being very precious and limited, right? Especially if you are a solopreneur or entrepreneur, you do not have the time and space to treat all these emails as equal or even just exist in your inbox, right? You have other things to do. So I took very much these principles of Merlin Mann as well as the actionable steps that you can take when clearing out your inbox, which is like to delete, to delegate, to respond, to defer, to do. And then I combined that with Marie Kondo's concept of giving everything a home, which is I found to be so incredibly helpful in a digital space because it's sort of creating designated spaces within your inbox on whatever system you are trying to organize, to give it its own designated space so you always know where to find information, you always know where to put information, and you, again, it has its place. Like it's not just existing there. It's not cluttering anything. There's purpose behind it. There's purpose in the way it's ordered and structured and put away, essentially. Um, and so when I was developing a system and I put it in place, I saw the transformation of like, oh wow, this is a pretty easy to navigate email inbox with a lot less clutter, right? And then it's also like, oh, I get to see my priority emails first, which was something that I really needed. It allowed me to locate information easily. So if I was looking for a specific email thread, I was able to find that with a quickness because I had labels in place to see what communications were relevant, right? And it also was pretty easy to maintain and adapt, especially as like things changed and evolved. So my transformation went from like very overwhelming, very insufficient, very cluttered to like very organized, very structured, very flexible in a sense, but helpful. And I saw great improvement in terms of like my communication practices and my productivity, right? I was not existing in my inbox and I wasn't lost in it and I wasn't overwhelmed in it. I was functioning with it. And I think that's the biggest distinction of this transformation. So, with that in mind, and no judgment here, um, I would love to know what is the current state of your inbox, right? And again, no judgment. We all start from somewhere. So it could be your inbox really needs help. You really need to figure something out. It could be it's pretty okay. You could make improvements, but it's fine. And you also, it could be great and you don't have any real complaints. There is a place for everyone who fits in either category to gain something here, right? If you're starting from nowhere, you're getting a great foundation and how to move forward and just how to have something in place, period, right? If it's kind of okay, but it can be improved, you get some ideas on like how you can make your email inbox better work for you and your business. And if it's great and you have no real complaints, you could leave it alone, or you can take some tips and tricks you learn here and maybe just make it greater. So, yeah, and I would love to, if again, feel free to add your answer if you want
You
to tell us the
got
state of your inbox.
you got a wham face from Karen.
Oh,
Please don't ask. Natasha's at extreme situation.
Okay.
I said a lot better from 2023 because I decluttered it, but it's starting to get messy again. And I can feel the stress. I can feel it
Oh,
starting to be
okay.
burdensome.
No, that's completely fine. And like I said, it's a system that works across the board. Is there any other responses that we need to make note of?
That's it for now.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, here's the four-step elements, and I promise you this is not a lie. Um, this is the steps I literally took when I was like creating the system and trying to make it work for me. I My first step was reviewing. I took a comprehensive look at what was in my inbox, why was it in my inbox, what's there, why is it there, and that led me then to the stage of decluttering, right? Where I had a full idea and assessment of all the emails I was receiving, all the emails existing in my inbox. And I knew what was unnecessary, was outdated, what was irrelevant. And this was the time for me to just get rid of all of them. My then next step was to look at all the emails that remained and sort of categorize them, right? So identify like relevant themes and groupings of them and how uh, I would organize them in a sense. And that led up me to my last step of then actually making that system into a reality, which is implementing it, like turning those categories, those groupings that I just figured out for my remaining emails into labels and tags and folders, like whatever your email platform kind of labels these systems or these features, right? I put that in place. And then I also utilize automation here, which is setting up filters because I understood what groupings and what and what labels certain emails were going through, and it was very easy to automate, very easy to manage, and there was no real need to have to do it manually once there was that much clarity in place. And you might be thinking, four steps are real. And yes, it's just four steps. I think like it's just four steps. And the crux could be how much time it takes, but I also think that's one of the best things about the system. It's very flexible, right? So whether you are dealing with 2,000 emails or 10,000 emails, you can break these steps up into a week, into a month, and you do go by them a week by week basis, right? Like it's very flexible. It's very straight to the point. It's very direct. There's nothing too complicated about it. Um, and you can adapt it to fit your needs best. And I think that's the one of the best things about it for me. Then we can go to the next step. And I actually want to kind of go through a process with you. So I have an email inbox, just a miscellaneous one that I have not touched, have not organized. And there's no crazy information in there that I'm afraid to share. So I want to walk you actually through these four steps together. And we're going to go 5 minutes per step. And we're going to streamline some aspect of your inbox today. Again, depending on the scale, you might need to dedicate more time to each step. But I just want to give you a good start today. So, step one, we're going to do a review step for step one. Um, and with that, I want us to use that time in the next 5 minutes to kind of evaluate what is in our inbox. And we're going to ask ourselves the following questions. We're going to ask ourselves what types of emails we're receiving and from whom. We're going to ask ourselves, is the email relevant or is it necessary? Does it contain important information or attachments that need to be saved? We're going to ask ourselves if we have a small team, you know, you may have evolved since you initially incepted your email inbox. And you can ask yourself if there are emails you can delegate or forward. And you're also going to ask yourself, is there an opportunity to unsubscribe or filter a certain email? So we're gonna pivot out of the presentation really quickly, and we're gonna go to my sample email inbox. So like I said, and I encourage you to pull up your own. But like I said, we're just gonna start with this first step, and we're just going to assess. So I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing on my end, and how I would go about it in my full assessment, essentially. So first glance, I have a couple of alert emails from recent sign-ins. I just got a new phone, so these are not really necessary emails that I would keep. I have a book funnel. I'm a big reader, so I have a couple of different authors that I'm subscribed to. I'm also subscribed to a food blog here. um, and, I actually want to keep that information. I like this creator. Um, Upskillist is a platform I signed up for a while ago. I don't think I'm utilizing it much anymore. So that's kind of like where these questions would come into play, right? These are type emails I'm receiving. They're relevant to me in some way and form, right? Like I am a frequent viewer of this food blog. I'm going to keep it. I frequent these authors of works, so I want to be a part of the email list. Upskillist, it might not be as relevant anymore. This might be an opportunity to unsubscribe, right? Because am I realistically taking these courses that they're telling me I'm missing? There's some Notion logins here. I don't think they're necessary for me to keep either. They're not relevant. And I'm also noticing as I scroll through so far, I'm seeing a lot of Lit Magazine emails. And I'm wondering if I can, consolidate them under one label. And so that's kind of like how you should go about your full assessment. And also make sure you're looking in all the compartments, right? Because I looked in my primary, I have a lot more in my promotional than I initially thought. And again, I see a lot more of Sephora insiders. I'm not really a makeup person. I don't really use Sephora a lot, so this is not really relevant to me anymore. I'm seeing Kennedy Ryan. She's an author that I really like, so I will probably keep those. And Rosebud too. She is an author I really like, and I love her works. Yeah. So
I have
a
a
bunch of these
question,
authors.
Sunny.
Oh,
I have a
go
question
ahead.
for Vicky. She said, how do you batch label emails from one sender or a newsletter? Like labeling all from one person.
Mm. So I guess I'm a little confused by the question. Are you asking how I can fit all of them under one label, or
No, from one
can you
person.
clarify?
So let's say Kennedy Ryan, you wanted to label it under learning or education. So
Mm-hmm.
how would you then label all of her emails that are currently in your inbox and incoming to with that label?
Oh, okay. We're actually going to go over that next in our decluttering step, so we can skip over to that. So with decluttering, and I'll bring you back to my presentation really quickly. Don't worry, we're going back to the inbox. Um, So, with that in mind, there are two different ways. Once you fully assess your inbox, and you figure out what you want to get rid of, what you want to keep, right? Because decluttering is about kind of that step. There are a couple of ways you go about it. So there's an automatic way. So there are platforms like Unenroll Me and Clean Email that you can attach to your email, and it can kind of do that filtering for you with your support, of course. And then there's the manual search way, right? And you can also go about that in terms of grouping um, any one set of emails for one set of people, right? So going back to your point, something that I do when it comes to um, grouping or trying to get all of the emails from one person in one place is I love utilizing the search. Like search is a very well, how would I phrase this? It's such a great tool. I think it's undervalued. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And so one way I might go about it is I might just type Kennedy Ryan, right? And see where she all pops up in a search bar, right? Um, as I can see, there's like 22 emails. So if I'm ever worried that like maybe I don't have all the emails under this person, I also can click in one and I copy over the email address, and I can also do a search like that from that email. You can also type it in. I just like to do copy and paste. So if you know the email off the top of your head, you could just type it in to either of these sections, whether it's from, like you're trying to get view the emails from this person or to this person. It works either way, but I know in this case I'm receiving a lot of emails from this person and not sending them. So this is kind of how I would go about it. I would search them in mass like this. And I think this is so invaluable. And then if there's anything, for example, like maybe this might be better shown with like another author that you might see me many emails from and the email inbox. But for example, if I had a lot more emails from this person, right, I might, you know, in different types of emails too. I might want to go through the different types of emails, and might want to see what type. So this is like a book funnel email, and that's a lot different than like a general newsletter. So let me go back to like the main one, and let me see a better example. Maybe Notion or Upskillist. I don't know, but I guess I should stop and say, did that kind of answer your question? Before I continue. Okay. So hopefully it did. But yeah, that's kind of how you can go about it. So when you're going about this step and you're trying to declutter in a sense, or just find all the groupings of certain emails together, utilize the search mail and find them in mass. That's kind of like my biggest recommendation, right? I can do the same with Google, right? I can see if there's like any Google related ones in a search in the subject line, and there is. And there also just be mindful too of like the particulars. So I utilize has the words more so than subject, because sometimes you don't have the exact subject in mind, but you might have some wording in mind that is relevant to it. So if you don't have the direct email addresses like from and to, you might have the words that you may have included in that email, or you might have the subject line. So there are many ways to kind of search and do this in mass. But there are, like I said, this is kind of like my go-to method, but there are also, going back to like the other options, which are actually platforms that kind of help you manage this process on like through them, right? So you don't have to manually go through it yourself. You don't have to manually type in an email address or find it. It's my preference, but I know it's not everybody's preference. So you can utilize a platform like Unenroll Me, where you can see here an example. You can mask unsubscribe from certain emails that you see listed, and it will pull in all those emails and all those subscriptions, and you can either determine if you want to keep it, you can determine if you want to unsubscribe. I actually have used Unenroll Me before, and I love the platform. I utilized it on multiple inboxes, but if I don't have like a big mess, right? So I don't have an inbox with like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 unread emails. It's not worthwhile for me to use. But if you do, I do recommend, especially if you're not somebody who's a fan of the manual. This platform, Clean Email, also does something similar to that. I have not personally utilized it myself, but I know people that have, and they love it. So I am comfortable recommending it to you guys if you would like to use one of these platforms to do kind of like a mass decluttering without doing kind of like the manual method that I'm kind of showing you. So then circling back, once we kind of get through the declutter phase, so actually right now I can go ahead and delete a lot of these Google emails, and I'll show you how to do that in mass. So I can go here and I'm seeing, oh, the distinctions right here, right? So I'm seeing Google emails. I don't want them anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete them. And right. You also can unsubscribe from them en masse too. But I usually go with clicking one email, unsubscribing, and then deleting the other ones in bulk. So going back to maybe Upskillist, I don't think I want to receive these emails anymore. So I'm gonna unsubscribe, like I told you to, right? But in that same vein, I'm going to search up all of the other emails in there. Oh, it's only two. Okay. And that's incorrect to me. So that's where I would use has the word upskillist, right? And see what comes from that. Oh, and I got a lot more, right? And I would just go ahead and delete. So now we kind of got these out of the way. We can shift then to step 3, which is categorization. So I think I got rid of most of the emails that I don't really want to keep. We can always circle back. And I think that's important to knowledge. You can always circle back, right? You can always go through this process again and again. But at least for right now, I'm pretty content with what I've gotten rid of, right? Because other things I want to keep, right? Like except for this Google, this should have gotten in the first round. But I want to keep all these newsletters. I want to keep these receipts. I want to keep these Notion team emails because I have utilized them and I want these types of notifications, right? So now that I know what I want to keep in my inbox, we are then going to the third step in our process, which is, and sorry, but just to categorize. And I kind of want to show you this kind of briefly, where here are kind of like examples of like how you can be thinking about your email categories. And I recommend you think about their purpose, their intent, and their relevant kind of theme. Like how would that grouping work, right? So utilizing my inbox as an example, I have a lot of newsletters. I have a lot of newsletters in there from authors, right? So something I may want to make a label is maybe newsletters or resources. That is a good label to have, right? And if I want to be hyper specific, in case you maybe have multiple types of newsletters, is I want author newsletters, right? And there are also some that are more aligned with kind of like the Merlin Mann method listed up here too as examples of like action required, waiting for completed. And hold on, let me circle back. And I actually want to implement those labels in my process. I implement them in every email system and I haven't yet done it here. So my go-to labels that are very Merlin Mann inspired are action required. And I love action required because action required kind of forces me to pay attention to that email. So I would love an action required. So I'm going to have that in my system, right? In the same vein, I'm going to maybe have a email inbox for my food blogs. I follow a food blogger. So maybe I'll label this food blog and I'll keep it under there, right?
Diamond,
And then I have, go ahead.
Vicky is still confused. She said, "Did I miss the labeling? How to? I'm not sure if you walked through how to label one sender."
Oh, okay. That's gonna be sorry.
Oh.
That's gonna be our very next step. And I think definitely did will show you that. So
Okay.
I will show you that. So sorry. But I did want to show you how you can at least search up one whole list of one person essentially in here. So right now, just we're going through the categories and we're determining what we would label each grouping of emails we get. So for example, I see Notion in here. Notion's a project management platform. I utilize it for personal use. I might want to have a specific label for that, right? Of like maybe daily tasks or daily to-dos, right? I made some book purchases recently, and I might want to have a label for receipts, right? So just keeping that in mind, that's kind of the process in which we're going about categorizing things. Like we're grouping them up based on where they kind of fit in our system. And this tab, I see a lot more grouping of author newsletters, as I mentioned before, right? So again, I would funnel that all under one label and group them there. I see Shudder. Shudder is like a streaming platform that I signed up for once upon a time, and I sign up every October to watch one particular show and watch some scary movies, right? So I might have that for my streaming subscriptions label, right? Or I have this email call from Lectures on Tap, which is like a great program here for in New York City for people who just want to go out and who like lecturing or like reading different or hearing different lectures. So I would probably label that as like social or activities, right? So that's just kind of the crux of the categorization step, right? And then we are left with the implementation step. And that's what you're asking about, Vicky, which I'm clear on right now. So going there, how you would actually create the label. So we just in step 3, we figured out that I need author newsletters. And so with that in mind, I would create a label author newsletters. Right. And then I would go back to searching Kennedy Ryan because she's an author. So I'll go Kennedy Ryan. And I would select all, like I would select all from the top. And then I would label as author newsletters. As you can see, so then we go to this label and all of her emails exist in here, right? And the actual next step to this, right? So I can go back and do that for all the different author newsletters that I'm signed up to. But we can even take it a step further, right? And we can actually implement some automation. So we could then go into one of the emails. Oh, sorry, I didn't branch out. We could then go into one of the emails and we can click these 3 dots on the side and we can filter messages like these. And with the filter, we have the very same options from when we're just doing a general search. But we can say, okay, I want emails from Kennedy at KennedyRyanWrites.com. And I want to go here and I want to create a filter. And then I want to go through these options. So these options, you can pick at your own discretion, right? So if you have a set of emails that don't necessarily need to land in your inbox, but you want to have them, you can click skip the inbox and it will initially archive it, right? If you want to have emails automatically hit your inbox, you can instantly mark it as read if it's that would work for you, or you can also star it. What I'm trying to do specifically right now is I want to apply a label, right? So anything I receive from Kennedy Ryan at KennedyRyanWrites.com, I'm going to automatically apply the label authors newsletters. And then you have the option of forwarding it if you want to forward it to another email, deleting it if you don't want them there anymore. Never sending the spam is a great one to click. Especially if they're important emails, you can have it set to they're always marked as important or never mark it as important. You can categorize it if you want to keep the main categories in your inbox, and then you click the very last one, which is the one I recommend you always click. Other ones are options, except these 2 for me. Apply the label you want, and also apply filter to the 22 matching conversations. And so you would create that filter. So that is kind of how you can create a filter automatically and also take a bunch of emails in bulk and just put it under one label, right? And so now when I search Kennedy Ryan, you'll see the label author's newsletter. And actually, let me change the color too. So you can change the label color so you can clearly see it. So with that, I changed the color to red, and every time you see Kennedy Ryan in my inbox, you'll see this label. And I can do this again with Literary Mag News or Lit Mag News, because that's something I see frequently in my inbox. All right. Oh, and this is something too when creating labels that to be mindful of is when you utilize keywords, it might pull in other things. Like it pulled in Kennedy Ryan, right? Because it has good news in it. So it's either you can either kind of like have some quotation marks around it to make sure it's only pulling in the name of the emails that you want to pull in, like as a grouping of names, right? Or as a phrase, rather. It's better to say phrase, but as a phrase rather than as random sets of words. So with that, I can do the exact same thing. I can I can select all, and I can go here and I can label as author's newsletters, and it's automatically applied. I can even go further than that and create a filter. Now this one is trying to have me create a filter from the words. I would rather create a filter from the email. So I'm going to actually go back in and copy the email. Oh, and it's right here, right? And I'm going to go about it the same way, create a filter. I'm going to go through all of these individually, but I'm going to choose my main ones, which is apply the label I want, and then also apply filter to all the conversations, right? And all the conversations means just all the relevant emails with this exact email address. So I hope I answered your question better this time. And you can let me know if I didn't. So not only can you do that, so that is a process you would go, you would do throughout the whole implementation stage, essentially, right? You will create whatever miscellaneous labels you had in mind, and then you will filter your emails into them. And like I said, you can do it as simply as filter messages like these, right? You can create a filter. You can go here. I'm going to apply a label. And you can actually even create a label from here. So I want to show you that part too, where you can either choose a label, right, from the existing list, or you can create a new one. And I'm going to call this food blog. So I'm going to create this label called food blogs. And then I'm going to go through these options. And you know what? I want to mark this as important always, right? Because I really love the recipes I receive from this food blogger. And so I'm going to create that. And then I'm going to refresh. And so I wish you could see it in mass. And so now when I go to that label, you'll see it here. And when I take you back to the inbox, everything with this food blogger information. And let me change the color so you can see it more clearly, right? Everything that she's labeled under here, right? Food blogs is here. And now if you want to take your emails organization after you implement all your labels and you have all your emails moved into these separate labels, right? The next step, and my favorite component of having a system is I love to change up my inbox, right? So you can go to your settings, your quick settings right here. It's the gear bar on the side. And then you can scroll down to inbox type. So this is the general inbox type that you're presented with Gmail, right? But you do not have to stick with it. You do not. So for me, I never utilize the generic default inbox format, right? you can come in, you can try to do important first, right? And how that makes your inbox look is everything that's labeled important will be the first thing you see when you open it, right? And then you get down here and there's everything else. You can also do the same with unread first, right? And these kind of only give you like two different sections, right? But you get to see whatever set of emails you want to see first, right? Unread first versus everything else. Or starred first, right? There's nothing starred here, but starred first before everything else, right? But my favorites, my favorite inbox settings are the priority inbox, which you can then customize further in the back. So the priority inbox actually gives you 4 sections that you can have for your inbox. So I love this one, and I also love multiple inboxes because you can even have 5 sections with your multiple inboxes, right? But priority inbox is a little bit easier to deal with. With priority inbox, you get to determine the sections for your inbox. So I want this, I'll keep this important in the red. Like I'll keep number 1 important in the red, unread, but I might change the second one. And I'm going to go to more options here because there are more options available, right? Because you created those labels. And when you create those labels, you can definitely have those labels be major organized sections of your inbox, essentially, right? So I'm going to actually make the second one action required based on my label that I created here. And then I'm going to do that again. I don't want to do important because I already did that. I don't want to do starred. I'll go back here and maybe my third one, I want to make author newsletters right here. And then I'll save that. Right? And it's that saved. And now it's it's a little bit easier to see when they're all close up. But now you see that my inbox is in 4 different sections, right? You see the ones labeled unread and important, right? These are the emails I obviously want to see first. And then you see all the action required. So if there's any email that ever label action required, I'll put here, right? You can even put this one first. I do recommend you put it first. And then you see all here, all my author newsletters are grouped under this label right here, right here. Sorry, pull that up. And then everything else can kind of fall into the 4th section. And so that, so yes, I love to customize my inbox. You can also adapt the reading pane. So if you want to have a preview of your email inbox before, of your email essentially, before you actually click on it, you can have that, right? Or that. So I would, definitely encourage you to take advantage of the different settings that you can also implement in your organization system. I love to change up the inbox type. You can change up the theme. You could customize the theme if that's important to you. And you can change up the reading pane, right? If you want it split screen or below, these are options that are all afforded to you, right? So with that, we have done our 4 steps. And I hope it was very clear for you. But if it's not, I would love to open the floor up to any questions. And feel free to just go ahead and ask. Are there any questions? Sorry. Are there any questions yet? Okay. 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 So in the meantime, while you guys are typing out your questions, I I would love to also give you a little bit more guidance, right? So I just kind of walked you through the process of, okay, we created the system. We went through the steps to create the system. Um, but that is the first step, right? That is like the first step in overall email optimization, right? The organized email system doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with the last, set of filters or labels you create. It is a continual thing. It is very easy to maintain. I would love to stress that. So a couple of tips that I would love to share while you guys are typing out your questions is to schedule out time to check your inbox. Whether that is twice a day, once every other day, having a dedicated time to looking in your inbox, addressing any emails is pretty important, right? Because clutter is what causes the havoc. That's what causes the havoc. Letting things build up, letting things get unmanageable, right? So scheduling time is very much being proactive and addressing any emails you receive within that time span, getting it out the way, and ensuring that your email inbox stays functional, right? And picking back off of the first point, regularly process your email inbox. Again, whether you do that once a day, twice a day, once every other day, once every week, right? I would tell you to go through your email inbox, go through your latest set of emails, and have an action behind them. Whether you are seeing an email and you're like, this is not relevant, let me delete it, or, oh, this is more focused on customer service, let me forward it to my assistant, right? Or somebody's asking you a question, let me respond to this very quickly. Maybe it's something that's more intensive and you're like, I need to think about this. Let me set this aside for later, right? And that's when you can use your very great newly created action required label. And if it's something related of like, oh, you need to send an attachment, you need to write a check, right? You can immediately do that based on that email you just received, right? So process your email, schedule a time to check it, right? Those two kind of go hand in hand. My third recommendation is limit clutter. So reduce the number of emails you receive. So don't sign up for all the newsletters. Like, be very mindful of what you sign up for. I understand I'm somebody that's like, ooh, I have a new interest. Let me just sign up for all the things. Like, you just saw my email inbox, right? Let me sign up for all the things. And I say, no, be very mindful of what you sign up for. Give yourself some limits, right? Like, let yourself know, like, okay, if I sign up for this, I actually have to engage with these emails. And if I don't engage with these emails for a month, I don't need to receive them anymore, Like, be strict about it. If I'm still thinking about joining this newsletter a month from now, let me join it, Like, we're very spur of the moment. So I would say just be very intentional about what you sign up for, why you're signing up for them. And also be proactive into like implementing them in your system, right? What labels immediately do you know this would go under, right? I know in my official business email, I have a personal development label that a lot of these emails will flutter into. So if I sign up for one newsletter, I'm initially going to be like, okay, let me put this towards personal development and some resources, right? And then my last recommendation to maintain your system is to always adjust your system and your labels as need be, right? Because the crux of the system is that it needs to be functional for you. And your business will change, it will evolve as you go on, right? Different things that mattered to you months ago might not be the same instance now, right? So be okay with adjusting. You don't have to stay with your initial setup. I know that I've adjusted my email system numerous times before, like my professional one, and I am still adjusting it. Right? I at some point added a subscribe filtered to my email system, because there are a lot of things that I subscribe to, like, and I need to unsubscribe to them. So I have an unsubscribed one now in my system to also monitoring my cleaning, right? I also had a media one when I started getting inquiries from podcasters, or like was actively seeking out those types of opportunities. I put that all under a media, and I didn't need that in the beginning of my email system. I didn't need a media folder. But once that need came up, I definitely created that label for myself, right? So be in that mind frame of like, if you are seeing a newfound need, or a need that no longer exists that you have a label for, you could get rid of that label, you can add a new one. You don't have to be stuck with what you started with. It's the ultimately what I'm saying, right? And adjust it, make it continuously functional for you, right? And also, a great reason to have sort of a maintenance practice in place is when you get to a point where you can eventually bring somebody on to support, right? If you're a solopreneur and you dream of having a team, and maybe that's just one person, maybe that's another, like maybe that's two people, right? Having a maintenance practice that you yourself are facilitating while you're a solopreneur, and then once you kind of get into adding members to your team, it's going to be much easier to delegate that. So if you're getting an executive assistant, a personal assistant that you're like, I want you to handle all of my email management, you already have a standard operating procedure in place. This is your standard operating procedure, you know? And they would be able to fully jump into your email system and make it and keep it functioning, keep it manageable for you, going at it the same way you would as an individual. So that is something that you should definitely keep in mind. Like, these are something that you easily, again, turn into SOP. I don't mind you stealing that. um, but circling back again to anybody who has any questions. Sorry. No.
No questions at the moment.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, we can also then do a little bit of selfish self-promotion. And I actually have a day rate service that is kind of centered around doing an email inbox refresh for you. So maybe you know all steps, right? Maybe they're digestible, you get them, but you don't have the time. Or maybe you don't have the energy. Maybe you're somebody who has the thousands of emails and you're just like, I don't think I can do it. Like, it's daunting, it's overwhelming, and you physically can't get yourself to do it. That's when I say it's best to delegate. It's best to bring somebody in to potentially support you in that endeavor, right? Because it's a need regardless. Having an organized email system is a need, right? So this is where my VA for a day inbox refresh service kind of comes into play, where I kind of do everything I just told you for you. And I do that within capacity of a day, right? So the process would start off with a discovery call, right? And once we decided to connect and whatnot, then we would do a strategy call in terms of like the process, right? So we do a strategy call to kind of help me determine like what emails you want to keep, what are your immediate needs with your inbox, right? What emails to keep, what emails to give, like to delete, unsubscribe from. We'll go through that together, right? And then after that, right, I will then do the actual implementation process for you, right? And this is a 7 to 8 hour day rate service, right? So this is a whole entire day kind of dedicated to your email, right? Of me just doing this process for you. And not only do you get that day of me doing this process for you, but then you'll get then you'll get 7 days of any sort of post-day support, right? Any remaining questions you might have, anything like any sort of if you need me to go in and make an adjustment, or you have questions about like why something was categorized this way, or if you want to change something, right? And you need somebody to support with that, you have that 7 days post support. And then you also will get sort of exclusive access to my beginner's guide to email mastery resource, which has a much longer list of like email management tips, as well as some great extensions that could be helpful for you and other platforms. Um, and even getting set up with a professional business email, right? Because again, I said we're solopreneurs, we're entrepreneurs. And if you are an entrepreneur and maybe you're still working on a Gmail, you don't yet have a domain for your official like business email yet, I kind of have a crash course in there on how you can go about it. So if you're interested, you can reach out to me at info@thevirtualgem.com, as my website is under construction. And yeah, like also feel free to reach out if you just have any lingering questions. Um, and this is again a thank you so much for like joining me in this talk. And I feel like I'm talking a lot, but thank you so much for just coming in and be willing to hear me out. And I really do hope you took something away from this workshop. So you can follow me on Instagram if you're interested in staying in contact at thevirtualgem.co. I'm also on LinkedIn as just Diamond Ward. I already told you can reach me on my email at info@thevirtualgem.co. And once my website, which is under construction, is officially live, you will be able to see all the things at thevirtualgem.co. So with that, I think we are good.
Thank you, Diamond. And we did have one more question from Vicky. She said, does Unenroll Me work for Apple Mail?
I would actually have to look more into that because I've only utilized it on Gmail and an AOL account. But
I
I
think we
do
have it on the
have it.
website as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably on the website somewhere here. Major email, unrolling major email providers, Yahoo. Okay, Google. It could. I think that's Outlook. Outlook. Okay. I would have to double check that, but you can also potentially check out Clean Email too, because I think what is Clean Email list? Yeah, I think oh yes, Clean Email absolutely mentions Apple Mail right here, right? So if you find that unenroll me doesn't work, Clean Email definitely will work because it does work with Apple Mail, definitely.
Thank you, Diamond. Progress is asking your LinkedIn. What's your LinkedIn name?
Yes. So my LinkedIn name is let me go back to this slide. It's Diamond Ward. I also do have a company one, but that's fairly new. There's hardly any post on it. But you just find me at Diamond Ward, and it's the same profile picture. It will say virtual assistant in the headline. And in terms of the spelling, it's DIAMOND WARD. So that's where you can find me on LinkedIn, but also on Instagram if you want to find me on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everyone for coming to this workshop today. Thank you, Diamond, for hosting today and sharing all things about email and walking through all the questions we had today. I hope you can put some takeaways in the chat of what was your big takeaway from today. I'm sure Diamond would love to hear. I'm going to stop recording for now. You can put your takeaways in the chat. I'm just going to close this recording real quick.